Going to turn now to the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, California Congressman Adam Schiff. Well, Congressman, you heard John McCain. Give me your analysis for what's going on right now in Iraq and in Syria.
Well, the loss of Ramadi, I think, was a very serious setback, and it's one that is deeply felt, I think, by Americans. We lost a lot of our troops in Ramadi, and this Memorial Day weekend, we think about those losses. They weigh heavily on us. But in terms of the Iraq war itself, I think there's an important lesson here, and that is we won Ramadi, but it didn't stay won because the political problems that preceded the first Iraq war haven't been solved, and that is the Sunnis have not been brought into the government adequately. Sunni forces haven't been adequately trained and integrated into the military. And until those changes are made, until Iraq makes the political decision to fully incorporate the Sunnis, we can add more forces, we can win these battles, but they're not going to stay won. I think that's the real lesson of the last Iraq war and what's going on now.
Well, you know, years after we came through the Vietnam experience, I remember thinking, you know, we kept asking during that period, are we winning? And when you have to ask the question, generally, you're not winning because victory is always obvious. Do you think we're winning now?
I would say that we're winning. I don't think we're losing either, but I think we're seeing an ebb and flow and largely a stalemated situation in the war against ISIS. I get concerned when I hear the administration use the metric of how many sorties, how many bombing runs we're doing. I think the more important metrics are how are we doing in stopping foreign fighters entering the country? How are we doing in drying up ISIS's resources? How are we doing in working with our Gulf allies on fighting the ideological fight within Islam that we're not positioned to fight ourselves? And how are we doing in terms of support? And on that latter point, that's where I think Ramadi really comes into play. I think we still have a lot of work to keep the pressure on the Iraqi government to fully incorporate the Sunnis, to peel those Sunni tribes away from ISIS, because until that happens, we're not going to be successful in the military struggle.
Well, what can we do in a realistic standpoint? Is it possible to turn around what seems to be happening right now?
It is possible, and I think we have to intensify efforts first to bring those Sunnis into the government and into the military. I think bringing in Shia militias is the wrong answer. That's going to just aggravate those sectarian tensions. I think sending in our own troops is not the answer either. We can't fight this fight for the Iraqis. But we got to use all the pressure we can to get them to make the political fixes necessary. At the same time, we have made little progress in dealing with the foreign fighter problem. We have to intensify, I think, pressure on Turkey to close down that border to foreign fighters coming in and to oil resources trafficking back and forth across that border. And more broadly, we need more help from our Gulf allies on the ideological struggle against this perversion of Islam.
I'll ask you just what I asked Senator McCain, because I think for Americans it's the most important question, and that is what is happening there really a threat to our security as the nation?
It is a threat to our security, and if ISIS is able to hold that ground unmolested, there's no question that they have the aspiration to attack us here in the United States. In fact, they're already inspiring homegrown radicalism here, as we've seen in attacks like we saw in Garland, Texas. So they are a threat. But again, I think we have to make sure that we don't react the wrong way to that threat. And we could aggravate it by sending a lot of American troops in. And there's a particular risk of escalation if we do.
One other subject, Congress failed to get a deal in the National Security Agency surveillance program, which allows for the bulk collection of telephone numbers in this country. Do you see any kind of a compromise on the horizon on this, or is this program just going to shut down on July the 1st, or June 1st, I guess it is? And if it does, what will be the impact of that?
Well, ironically, we had a great compromise. We passed it in the House with over 330 votes, very bipartisan. And there's a majority of support in the Senate itself for that very same compromise. So what happened this week in the Senate, I think, was a catastrophe in terms of rejecting a very well thought out, broadly supported compromise that the intelligence community itself embraces. It has the merit of reforming those authorities to end bulk collection, but maintaining the surveillance tools that are necessary to protect the country. What happens right now, it looks like this program is going to expire. Now, I think the Senate, when it comes back in, I hope we'll see wisdom and pass what we passed in the House. That's the only way to prevent a real interruption in this program. And Bob, bear in mind that it's not just the authority for bulk collection that's going to expire. It's some other very important tools as well that deal with roving wiretaps, that deal with lone wolf threats, as well as the more rudimentary use of Section 215 to get records like hotel records or financial records.
All right, we have to stop there, Congressman. Thank you so much for
Thanks, Bob.
adding to our broadcast this morning. And we're going to be back in a minute with some